طيب.
Recording in progress.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه وعلى من تبع هداه إلى يوم يلقاه. This is class number 14 and this is transaction part number 3, and today is the 20th of Dhul Qi'dah 1444 and it's the 9th of June 2023, and we are at the moment onto a chapter of the transaction. It's called Al-Bay'u bil-Khayar, and that is giving the choice for transaction. We need to know that the person, when he makes a transaction, an Islamic transaction with another person, normally we have something called Khayar al-Majlis, the choice before one depart from the other. So we are making the contract in the shop, we're selling and buying in the shop or in a house, whatever it is, then we have the choice to nullify this transaction and cancel it as long as we are together. And that is default. But we have then another thing which is called conditions. If we agreed upon that the transaction will be valid and there is no choice, as soon as we make the transaction, regardless if we depart from one another or not, then we have the right to do so and abide by that. So we said transaction will take place regardless if we departed from one another or not. Or we said the transaction's choice will extend even after we depart away from each other for a certain period. Like some of the shops you see these days, they give you about 28 days return. There's no problem about that as well. But here we need to know that Islam doesn't want to have any loser and a winner. So let's say for this person, for example, he had basically purchased something and there is a default, there's a fault into it. So regardless we have a choice to return the goods or not, that fault Islamically makes it binding upon the seller to accept if the buyer comes with a faulty good, to say to him, this is faulty. And also to give back, that is the buyer, anything in return for the usage of that item. So the time of the Prophet ﷺ, for example, some of the people, they would sell a she-camel where the udder is really full. Why? Because they kept it for a long time, unmilked, to show that this she-camel produces milk all the time. Once he sells it, this person later on finds out, after a day or 2 days, that it's actually just milked once, and then after that, it hardly milks. So he will go back, and then he will also, the one who bought the she-camel, give in return the equivalence of that quantity of milk which he had used. So we give, for example, handful of, or a sa', 4 handful of dates. It depends on how much that costs, that milking, how many milking days that you had. So the faulty item, if it is being sold as faulty, Islam gives the guarantee for that person, either to the buyer to return it back, or maybe to go and negotiate, if he wants it, for a lesser price, if he wishes. Also, the two buyer and the seller, they have the option to extend their return to a certain conditions. For example, 28 days, as long as you bring it back in the same packaging and it hasn't been, for example, humiliated, depreciated so much, then it is also permissible for doing so. The principle of that, al-Muslimuna 'inda shuruti. The Muslims, they abide by the conditions they set upon themselves. Now we come into something called al-Musaqa wal-Muzara'a. What is this here? Al-Muzara'a is basically that we find a person hiring a land. So he is hiring a land. And Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith, he said, he forbade the muzara'a and he permitted the mu'ajara. He forbade the muzara'a and permitted the mu'ajara. Mu'ajara means hiring. What is the muzara'a that the Prophet of Allah forbade? Is that, for example, a person who's owner of the land and another person who wants to plant that land. So they will say that I will take the crops which grows in the eastern side of the area, and you take the other half, which is the western side. Why isn't that allowed? Because there is gharar. There could be a loss, and could be also an unknown, a risk, high risk. How the eastern area could produce the crops, and nothing more be in the western area, so that person will be losing. Or for example, I will take from you, regardless of what quantity you have made from the produce of the crops, I will take 100 kilos. Well, it could be the whole of the crops were 100 kilos. So there will be the person who planted it had lost. Or I will take the crops which are near the river. Okay? Not the ones which are in the middle. Again, high risk here. Near the river will produce crops and the other area will not produce crops. So this is prohibited at that time because there is a high risk. But there is muzara'a which is accepted. And that is, he says, I have 20%, 50%, 70% of the total produce. No problem. So the produce that came up from you planted the land, and you have used everything, and it's my land, and we said, I will take 50%, 30%, 20%. There's no problem, because it is going to be, both of them they will gain. So if the produce was too much, so alhamdulillah, don't divide it, and if it's little, nobody will be losing, because the percentage is from the total, rather than to say 100 kilos, because it could be the whole produce 100 kilos. It could be even if not produce 100 kilos, the guy's going to go and borrow something from outside to go and compensate for that. Okay, that's not allowed. But it's allowed to hire. So I'm giving you the land as a hire. Whether you want to use it for crops, or you're going to use it for something else, it's up to I'm hiring you the land. Okay? Then if I'm hiring you the land, then the hiring is like it's money to be paid for hiring something else. There's no problem. You can hire the land by the money, by the gold, by food, even by the same produce. I'm hiring it. I'm hiring the land here. So hiring the land is different from to make muzara. Also the muzara is allowed if I said to you, I'm owner of the land. If you plant, for example, peaches, then I will take 50%. If you plant grapes, I will take 20%, no problem. So make a condition. Which plant, if you want to put peaches, 50% of it. If you plant grapes, 20% of it. That's no problem. Because here everything is being set and there is no high risk. Coming now to something called al-musaqa. Musaqa, now it is not the land, it's the crops. Again, the same thing. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Ansar, they came to the Prophet and they said, Messenger of Allah, divide between us the palm trees. It's the palm trees belong to the Ansar. But because of this brotherhood, it's divided between us. Prophet ﷺ said, no, not correct. I mean, you are the owner of the land, we're going to take half of it. He said, okay, Messenger of Allah, that you take care of the trees, fertilize it and look after it, and we will give you share in the crops. So the Prophet of Allah accepted. And the Muhajirun, they said, accepted it. Now we're coming to council revival, Ihya al-Mawat, the lands which are dead. This is a land which is in the middle of nowhere, hasn't been owned by anybody, and it is dead, got nothing in it. It is not next to a stream of water or a well which is known by the people, so it's dead land. So this person comes to this land and he revives it. He makes it alive by irrigating the land and planting the land and building in the land. Then it becomes his own land. Islam encouraged such a thing. He said, "Man a'mara ardan laysat li ahadin fahuwa ahluha." He who had revived the land and made it alive, which doesn't belong to anybody, then he has the right to that land. Now, here man a'mara, he who had made or rebuilt the land, this is to do with the urf. What is the people reckon or acknowledge to be that this person had revived this land? So there's no such thing that you could say limit this. It could be a fence, he built it around it, and he started reviving this land. But again, if it is including a well or a spring of water, no, this land is not there. It has to be partners for everybody. طيب, if the leader or the president or the head of the country said that no one has permission to do so, then we have to refer to him. We cannot revive any land because he says that this land, all of this land is mulk lid-dawla, owned by the state, and no one is to take it without the permission. Because if there is no such law, you are not binded or obligated to go and seek the permission of the government. Just any land in the desert, take it and revive it. Coming now to something called al-ijara. Al-ijara means to give the ownership of something that is beneficial with compensation. So this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about it. So let's say for the women who give in suckling. So I give them money and they suckle the babies of mine. Al-murdi'at. A person, I am using him to do something for me and I'm giving him his wages. It's the job. At the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when he migrated with Abu Bakr, he had hired somebody called khirrit, person who knows where the roots in the desert. And he was a disbeliever. So they used him, but he's trustworthy, and they hired him in order to show them the route. What is permissible to hire is that the one that you could lend it or hire it, and it is possible for it to return back as it is. Meaning you cannot hire, for example, a piece of bread to somebody. You're going to eat it and return back. You can't hire bread or food. It has to be higher in the glass, because it cannot be returned as a glass. Higher in the car. Okay? As long as there is no Sharia or law that does not permit this. The condition for the ijara is to be valid is that to know that what is the paid wages for that, al-ujra, okay, and what is the thing that you're going to be hiring, and what is the period. So period, how long, what is you have to know how much to hire, and what is that thing that you're going to hire. Now, talking about hiring a person to do something. Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَعْطُوا الْأَجِيرَ أَجْرَهُ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَجِفَّ. Give the one you hire to do a certain job his wages before his sweat dries. It doesn't mean that he has to be given the wages before his sweat dries, because this person could maybe a person does not sweat. It means to give him as soon as possible. And this is here as recommendation. So it's recommended to do it as soon as possible. But you could delay it as long as there is no mumatala. Delay that person is after his money. I've done with the job, actually. Why are you waiting? But if it's 1 or 2 days because of the transaction, sometimes takes time or whatever, the bank is closed during the weekends and all of this. Now from this hadith, we know that the person who's been hired, he has no right to ask for his wages before he completes his what? His job. Unless there is an excuse that I have done this and I need to do part of it and I need to support myself in order to go ahead to continue this job. So we will be given according to what he had done. So he's not 50% of the job, but usually it's the case, we'll wait for him to finish the job. أهلا وسهلا. سلام عليكم. Prophet ﷺ said, Allah said, 3 people I am their opponent. Allah is going to be your opponent on the day of Allah. One of them who had hired a person and he had fulfilled what has been asked, the task, and this person did not give him his wages. Allah will be your opponent on the day of resurrection. Taking wages for recitation of the Quran. Recitation of the Quran, to recite the Quran. Prophet of Allah, he said, Iqra'u al-Quran. Recite the Quran. Do not use it for something to take and eat from it. And do not go away from it. Prophet ﷺ, he said, Iqra'u. And there will be people on the day of resurrection. They will be standing before the Lord. These are the ones who are taking wages with the Quran. Ta'allamu al-Quran and ask Allah Jannah with the Quran. Before that, some people will learn it in this dunya, asking for dunya. For Quran, 3 people learned. One who's the one boasting how good is recitation. One who's using it to have money. Every time he recites, money. Only money. And then a third one, a person who recites it for the sake of Allah. Now we come into Ash-Sharika. Sharika, or Shirka, or Sharaka. Through 3 are good, right pronunciation. Sharika is partners. Like a company. It's between 2 or more. And there are 4 types of sharikas. And by the way, what I'm saying to you is not in the book, it's addition. All of that's an addition. The title is there, but the explanation is very little, so I need to make sure that you understand. Sharika is a 4, or I should say 5 types. One of them is actually called Mudaraba. Sharika, which is money between 2 partners or more, but there's no involvement of their bodies. So they put money together and they invest in something. That's Sharika. Number 2, that the money from one of them and the money and also the money from the other. So the other partner is working also in that thing, in the investment, and also he's using his own money. That's also sharing. Thirdly, that is money and money from both. So they put in the money to invest and both as well involved into that sharing, they work into it. And also there's a sharika. Also, sharika, just in the bodies, no money is involved. And this sharika in the bodies, okay, whether it is, which is only with the money, whether it is with the money of other people or anything, but it's just only the bodies, then it has to be within one field of work. Like both are working in a garage. They are, one person makes an MOT, the other person fixes the engines. Why is that? Because when they divide the profit, one of them might say, well, I'm working all day and you're not working nothing. But when they work in the same field, it's almost the work is what? It's the same. Like a person who's a tailor and the person who is the one cuts the cloth. The one who tailors, sews, and the other one cut the cloth. They work together. Like we have al-Jalis al-Mudahin in our country. We go to the ones where body repairs. They're always with the paint. So one person paints the car and the other person what? Knocks the car. So they could be partners as well. Because the amount of work is almost the same. So it's one profession, no problem. The one which is the 5th one is that money from one and the money from the other. That's called mudaraba. I'm going to discuss the mudaraba in a minute. This is called mudaraba. So the other four types, again I repeat them: money, money, or money and money with money. So money with money and money, or money with money, or money and money from both. These are four types of sharika. And this sharika, it depends. If it's 50-50%, he says no, 25 to sell, because maybe one of them is very famous person. And I'm really going to be a winner just to go and be a partner of him. He would say to me, it was 10% for you, even I'm paying the same money. The same what? Capital money. But because he is well known, and I'm using his reputation. So he says 10% for you, 90% for me. I might accept, no problem. Because I know that this person, without him, the business will go down. Prophet ﷺ, he was a partner, a sa'id. He said to the Prophet, Messenger of Allah, in Jahiliyyah, before Islam, you were my partner. And you were the best of the partners. You would not be to be opposing me, nor you would argue with me. It shows you the partnership is not from the things that would humiliate a person, or belittle a person, or show him that he's nothing. No, Prophet of Allah, he was in the sharika. And also it shows that the Prophet ﷺ, he was a sadiq al-amin, a truthful person, trustworthy, before even he had received the revelation. Now we're coming to the al-mudaraba. Al-mudaraba, it's a person gives money, provides the money, and the other person is the worker. What is not permissible in the mudaraba is, number one, that is to define how much is the profit. So you have to define how much is the profit. If you don't define it, like for example, I satisfy myself with little profit. No, it has to be said 10%, 20%, 30%. So you have to define the percentage of profit and the share of the profit. Number two, also it is not permissible to specify a certain amount of money. So if he said to him, okay, you work with my money and then you give me £50 a month. It's not allowed. Because that person could be working, making millions, so the person who provided money, he was not going to be getting set for peanuts. Or he could be making that less than even the set money that is being given, and then he would be under oppression and justice. So it cannot be as well like that. It could be like percentage, half, quarter, third, no problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned the mudaraba wa akharuna yadribuna fil ard yabtaguna min fadlillah. Now it is consensus among the scholars that it is not permissible, whether for the worker or for the one who is the owner of the money, to set a specific amount of profit. Otherwise it becomes ijara, hiring. Hiring is different. Also, we have here a story that took place between the two sons of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Abdullah and Ubaydillah. Abdullah is the older and Ubaydillah is the younger. The sons of Umar al-Khattab, they went in the Iraqi army. The army had been sent to Iraq. When they wanted to go back, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, the mayor of Iraq there, he is the mayor of Basra. He welcomed them and he said, if I'm able to benefit you because you're the sons of the great Khalifa. It's not because you are Khalifa, no, it's because Umar Khattab, I would benefit you, I would help you. But there is here money, from the money of Allah, that means for zakah and all of that. And I want to send this money for the zakah to the Khalifa, Umar Khattab, the Amir al-Mu'mineen. So I want to give it to you as a loan. So you could use it to buy stuff from Iraq. And then you will sell the stuff in Medina. Then you will hand over whatever I've given you, which is the capital money, to the leader of the believers, Umar Khattab. And then the profit would be for you both. Do you understand that? Okay. He said, well, we agree. They liked it, Abdullah ibn Ubaydillah. And then he wrote a letter to Umar al-Khattab to take the money from them. When they came, they actually did what they told them to do. They bought stuff from Basra, from Iraq, and they sold it in Medina, and they made a profit. So when they came to Umar, they gave him the capital money. Then Umar al-Khattab, he said, can I just ask, did he give this loan to every person in the army? Did he just do the same thing to the other soldiers as well? They said no. Sons of Al-Khattab said no. So he said, the sons of the leader of the believer, he gave you money. I mean, he didn't give you money because of your got green eyes, have you? Or blue eyes. He gave you because you're the son of the Khalifa, isn't it? Give me all the profit. Al-Khattab radiallahu anhu has got no wishy-washy here. Even his own sons. All the prophets, the Bayt al-Mal. Abdullah went quiet. Ubaydillah is the younger. He said, leader of the believers, not talking to his father, he's a Khalifa. Leader of the believer, you shouldn't be doing that. Because if this money was to be decreased, we will be the guarantors. I mean, the money that has been given to us, and we made a transaction we lost, we have to compensate for that money. I mean, it's not correct. And Allah said, just bring me the profit. Abdullah again went quiet. Ubaydillah still. A man from the one who was sitting said, leader of the believers, if you just made it as to be qirab. Qirab means mudaraba. So, okay, I made it qirab, mudaraba. So Umar al-Khattab, he took the capital money and he took half of the profit. Half of the profit. And Abdullah and Ubaydillah took the other half. Now, here, the qirab is not in the capital money. The qirab was in the profit itself, the mudaraba. And I believe that this is not mudaraba, I believe this is like sulh. You know sulh? To settle. Because, you see, in the mudaraba, okay, there is no way that it is guaranteeing the money. If I give you the money and you are the worker, and you do the job, and you lost the money, that person, he hasn't, listen please, very important, he hasn't got the burden or the responsibility to return the money. Because he lost his what? He lost his word. So I'm presenting the money and he's presenting his money. I'm presenting the money, presenting the effort. So he worked for 1 year and he lost. The money's gone. His effort is gone. So there's no such thing, I want my money back. That's not correct. It's not mudaraba. Okay? So from the mudaraba, which is not known in our country, is that a person giving the car, hiring car, taxi, call it, to go and he owns the taxi and he says to him, I want £100 a month. That's not correct because that guy he doesn't make £100 a month. And then the car has to be guaranteed. If you do something, it is upon you. So the mudaraba is that I give a certain money and this person who is the worker, he will work according to what he believes is profitable. I cannot say to him, things will jeopardize his work. Work from 7 to 8. It's up to him. I trusted him and he wants to do the money. But I could say to the following. If you made, for example, merchandise and trade in grapes, then I have 50% again. If you made it in peaches, I have 80%. I've got the right to say that. If you worked in this, then, or I could say, if you have sold people, so let me give you money, and he opened a supermarket, and he's doing this business with a supermarket. If you lend people, I got nothing to do with that. It's up to you. It's your responsibility. I don't accept loans. Do you understand? If you gave people credit, it's up to you, but I'm not going to be what? Guaranteeing the credit. It's my money. I don't want to guarantee the credit. But if you lost the money through no credit, but to give it credit and people then run away with it, I'm not guaranteeing that. You have the right to do so. Now, Bank al-Islami, Jordanian Bank of Islam, which is already an Islamic bank, they say there's mudaraba. No, there's no mudaraba. Because the mudaraba of the Bank al-Islami, they will tell you which work you need to do. And that's not correct. Because we said it is the person who's going to work, he's the one to define what job he wants to do, not you to define it for him. And also, the Bank Islam, the Islamic Bank in Jordan, they will tell you that you will have to guarantee the capital money. If you lose the money, you bring it back. What sort of mudaraba is this? So it's always the losses upon the worker. And always the profit is for the one who's the owner of the money. That's not correct. You are allowed to call off this mudaraba at any time, from both sides. So when the shop give me my money back at the house. Or the worker said, I've got nothing to do with it. Take whatever left from the money, or the money, all of it, I don't want to go in. So this is consensus as well. Alhamdulillah, we finish here, al-mudaraba, we wait for another 10 minutes for a break, yes? And what time is the adhan? Not now, in about 1 hour, yes? Yes, inshallah. We'll finish by then. 10 minutes break. يا حي الله. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. بيع السلم or بيع السلف. There's a difference between the بيع السلم and the بيع of something which you don't have. بيع السلم in English, وفي Arabic, بيع شيء موصوف في الذمة شيء معجل. You're selling something which is being described and yet to be handed over with the price to be handed over on the spot. So I'm selling you something that I'm going to describe it to you in terms of size-wise, weight-wise, even description to the letter. It could be a machine that you're asking me to do. So I'm giving you even the dimensions of the screws and everything. And you're paying me beforehand. That's called Bayr al-Salaf or Bayr al-Salaf. And the companions used to do that. When the Nabateans and Anbat, who are people from the Arabs, but their tongue were twisted because they're mixing with the Romans. And you've heard about Petra, by the way. Petra is from the Anbat. They used to come to the Medina and they used to, as well, sell the zayt, which is the oil. We've got a shed full of oil, not so very good. So it's oil, also the wheat. They don't have wheat in Saudi Arabia, wheat in that shell. Barley. So they used to, companions, they used to ask them for this, they pay them the money, and then later on those people will pay them the stuff. They pay the money, companions, and then they used to define how much is in kilos, and when to what to hand it over. So it is conditioned in the Bayr al-Salam, which is not conditioned in a normal transaction, extra. That is number one, that you are able to, you are bound to make sure how much is the quantity, whether it is size-wise, or it is weight-wise, or counting-wise. And also, the price is known to be set. This is the price. And also, the time to hand it over is also being agreed upon. If the one whom you have paid the money did not produce the item on the time which is being set, then there's two choices here. Either the person who's giving the money give more time for that seller to produce the item, or to call off the whole section, give me my money back. I don't want that item. So it has to be set in a certain time, and also with a certain price, and also with a certain size or weight or count. And this is from the transaction that makes things easier on the people. So you go to a factory, you want to, for example, manufacture a special machine. They will ask you the money beforehand, and yet the machine is not there. But they will tell you the specification of of what you're going to receive, in terms of material-wise, in terms of how many things in it, and in terms of size-wise, and everything. Okay? So you give them, and they might give you a sample to see, this is the sample. So you give them the money, and they will start manufacturing. And they will have to hand it over in a certain time. And sometimes there's a penalty if they don't hand it over at the same time. But this is now called Bay'u Salam. Bay'ul ma laysa inda, the person who sells something which is not his, is that this person basically selling something that most likely he will not be able to hand it over. There's a big risk. I'm going to sell you, I want to sell you some, you want to buy fish? Okay, I'll get you the fish. So I'm going to go to the sea and hunt and get the fish. I might not get the fish like fish, the same fish that you want, is the same color. So there's nothing there known. How many kilos, and how, so this is called selling something which you don't own, that's haram. Bay' ma laysa inda. It's exactly what the Islamic Bank they do. They sell you something which they don't own. They don't own it. They will say to you, which thing that you want that car? Okay, pay us the money, then we'll get you the car and make the transaction. So before we make a deal with that company to purchase the car, you make a deal with us that you bought the car. Buying the car, but you didn't own it yet. You didn't own it yet. Now coming to something called Al-Qard. Qard means loan. And Islam had encouraged the Qard so much that Prophet ﷺ said, a man entered paradise. This is in his vision. He had seen in one of the doors or the gates of paradise, الصدقة بعشر أمثالها. If you pay sadaqah, you get 10 times its like. قال والقرض بثمانية عشر. Well, giving the loan, you'll get 18 times its like. The reason why al-qard you get more, even though the money that you get as a loan, you give as a loan, you can take it back, whereas the sadaqah you give it, it's not going to come back to you. But yet the qard has got more reward. It's usually the qard. The person who's asking you is number one, is in need, properly, for a loan. Number two, he's not going to ask you for 5 and 10 pounds, which is you give us a sadaqah. He's going to ask you for a considerable amount of money. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. So when you give that, 18 times its like. Islam also made it so prohibited for the person to take credit and get a loan while he is not intending to pay it back, or he fails to pay it back. For verily, Prophet ﷺ, he said, the Muslims or the mu'min's soul is suspended with the loan until it's being paid. So on the day of resurrection, you will not have your hisab until your loan is being paid. And on the day of resurrection, the payment is not, and the currency is not dirham or dinar, the currency is hasanat and sayyat. Abu Qatada radiallahu anhu, he said that the Prophet ﷺ one day, he stood up and gave a reminder to the companions about the jihad and the imam, and to be the best of the acts. And then he said, Messenger of Allah, what about if I've been killed in the sake of Allah? My sins will be forgiven? Prophet said, yes. If you to be killed in the sake of Allah, you are patient and hoping for the reward, and you are going forward, not running away, then you will have your sins being expiated. Then the Prophet said, what did you say? So he repeated the question, Messenger of Allah, if I do fight in the sake of Allah, to be killed in the sake of Allah, my sins will be forgiven? The Prophet said, yes. If you to be killed in the sake of Allah, and you are patient, hoping for the reward, and you're going forward, you're not running away, you will be having sins forgiven, except for the loan, for the debt. Jibreel alayhi salam just now told me about that. This is like the last moment of fixation here. Revelation to fix another revelation. That here he said, everything is to be forgiven for the matter except for the loan. Loan, don't mess about with it. Any person who takes money from the people and he intends not to bring it back, he intends not even to ruin it, all of that, Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَتْلَفَ Allah, Allah will destroy him. Any person who takes the money of the people as a loan and does not intend to bring it back, he will meet Allah as a thief. لَقِيَ اللَّهُ السَّارِقَ. Person, when he gives back the loan, he gives back in the best of ways. One day, a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, whom the Prophet is in debt to him, of a camel. So the Prophet he said, give him. And by the way, when he came, this man, he started speaking harsh against the Prophet of Allah. Companions are about to beat him up. Prophet of Allah, he said, let him. فَإِنَّ لِصَاحِبِ الْحَقِّ مَقَالًا. The one who's got right, he's got some justice, he wanted to frustrate, to take his frustration out, let him. Let him. He was saying harsh things against the Prophet. In any normal case, it would be like a blasphemy. Yeah, the Prophet let him. He was speaking harsh, where is my thing? You're giving me. So the Prophet said, go and look for him, for the camels to pay him back. They didn't find him the same age as the camel that he had borrowed the Prophet of Allah, he had got as a loan. They said the Prophet of Allah gave him something better, higher age. As soon as we given, he came back, he said, Messenger of Allah, you have given me even better than what I have given you. May Allah give you. Prophet of Allah said, خِيَارُكُمْ أَحْسَنُكُمْ قَضَى. The best of you is the one who pays back his debt in the best, the pays back his debt in the best of ways. And this extra is not haram on riba, because it hasn't been agreed upon beforehand. Somebody lent you 1,000, and then after he came back, you want to give it to him 1,200, no problem, it's halal. As long as it be what? Agreed upon beforehand. And also, as long as it is not the known trend in that area. People got used to this. You give you 1,000, you give them 1,200, then it will become riba. But if it is something like, normally it is not being done, and you take in the loan, and you want to return this honor after that, this is your 100, and this is a gift, a perfume, no problem. As long as it is after giving back the loan, not while the loan is still on. Otherwise it will become riba. So while you are in debt to me, you are not allowed to give me as a gift anything, unless this is something normal before they left the loan. We are together, we are cousins. But to give me the loan, like that, to give me a gift, not even a single thing, that will be considered as riba. So, Shaykh Al-Albani did the opposite. A woman, she came and she wanted help because her house was under the thumb of the bank and they're going to take it from her. Her husband died, so she wanted the loan. The loan, I remember, it is 7,000 pounds. 7,000 dinars at that time, you're talking about maybe 70,000 pounds in these days. So the Sheikh commanded some of the scholars, the students of knowledge there, to go and check if this is true story or not. They checked it, she said, yes, it's true. So he gave her cash. I brought a piece of paper, and it is sent it within, I don't know, 1 year or 2 years to give it back. After she had given it back in full, the 7,000, the Sheikh gives her 1,000 present. Not her to give the Sheikh. The Sheikh gives her what? 1,000 pounds as a gift. So she's like taking 1,000 pounds for the sake of Allah from the Sheikh. I know the story.